As the first light of dawn broke over the mesa, a blanket of stillness enveloped the rugged landscape. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting long shadows against the jagged rocks jutting from the earth. The air was crisp, carrying a hint of coolness that whispered through the canyons. Here, on this wild and untamed land, every sound felt amplified: the soft rustle of wind, distant calls of birds awakening, and the occasional echo of a horse's hoof striking stone. Beneath this serene facade lay an undercurrent of tension. The night had been restless. Whispers of danger echoed among those who roamed these parts. Heavy with secrets, the mesa concealed stories of both hunt and hunted. In one shadowy corner, a lone shack bolted by rusted chains stood as a grim reminder of lawlessness, a captive waiting for his fate. Nature itself seemed to hold its breath as time inched forward, waiting for someone to break the silence. The rustler inside that shack knew dawn would bring change. Whether it be deliverance or doom remained uncertain. Out here, in this remote stretch of wilderness, every moment counted as hope flickered like a fragile flame against the looming darkness that threatened to close in. Emerging from the shadows of the Mesa Trapper was a figure of resilience and skill, molded by countless days spent in solitude among the wild. With sun-kissed skin and eyes as sharp as an eagle's, he seemed more a part of the landscape than a mere visitor. His weathered hat cast a shadow over his face as he surveyed the terrain, always alert, always aware. Resourceful by nature, the trapper carried no more than a few essential tools: a knife for crafting traps, a trusty rope for climbing steep cliffs, and handmade snares for capturing game. Years of experience had taught him to read the signs of nature, the way animals moved through the land and how the wind shifted direction. He felt a kinship with every rock and tree, understanding their secrets in ways others could not. But beyond his craft lay a heart that pulsed with compassion. The trapper believed that even the most troubled souls deserved a chance at redemption. Today, while danger lurked around every canyon bend, he felt an undeniable pull toward action. With his instincts kicking in and courage igniting within him, he made up his mind to intervene in the fate of the shackled rustler before dawn fully claimed its reign. The shackled rustler, known as Jake, had a past marked by both sorrow and rebellion. Once a promising ranch hand, he had fallen into a life of crime after losing his family in a tragic accident. With nothing left to lose, he turned to rustling cattle, believing it was the only way to survive in a harsh world that had dealt him a cruel hand. Jake was wiry and quick, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes that held a flicker of defiance even in despair. His capture had come swift and brutal. The sheriff's posse, armed and relentless, had ambushed him during a nighttime raid on his latest target, a small herd grazing near the canyon. Outnumbered and taken by surprise, Jake fought back fiercely but was overpowered and shackled, the weight of iron chains heavy around his ankles. Now, confined within the rusted shack, he replayed the events leading to his imprisonment over and over in his mind. As he listened to the soft sounds of dawn breaking outside, hope flickered within him. He yearned for a chance at freedom, not just from the shackles but from the burdens of his past. A chance to start anew before it was too late. Standing at the edge of the canyon, the Mesa Trapper felt a stirring in his heart as he looked toward the shack where Jake was held captive. The morning light illuminated the rusted chains that bound the rustler, and the sight ignited a fierce determination within him. He couldn't shake the feeling that Jake deserved a second chance, just like anyone else who had stumbled down a dark path. The trapper had seen too many lives broken by harsh circumstances, and he believed that intervening could change the course of one man's fate. However, freeing Jake was not without its dangers. The sheriff's posse would soon be on high alert, their anger fueled by the rustler's escape and their desire for justice. If caught, the Mesa Trapper could face severe consequences for aiding a fugitive, risking not only his own freedom but also drawing unwanted attention to his quiet life in the wilderness. Yet, as he weighed the options in his mind, he recalled tales of courage and redemption from his own past, times when he had been helped by others during his darkest moments. With resolve blooming like a wildflower in spring, he decided to act. He gathered his tools and moved closer to the shack, ready to take that leap into uncertainty for a chance at hope and renewal. As the Mesa Trapper approached the shack, his heart raced with a mix of fear and excitement. He crouched low to avoid detection, listening carefully for any sounds that might signal the presence of the sheriff's posse nearby. The rusty chains glinted ominously in the soft morning light, and Jake's anxious eyes met his, sparking a silent understanding between them. The trapper quietly examined the shack's iron lock, worn from years of exposure to the elements. He pulled out his trusty knife, its blade sharp and gleaming. With steady hands, he began to pry at the lock mechanism, feeling the tension build in the air around him. Each scrape of metal against metal echoed like thunder in his ears. He couldn't afford to make a sound. One misstep could alert the posse lurking just beyond the canyon. With a final twist of his wrist, the lock clicked open. Time seemed to freeze as he quickly pushed aside the chains binding Jake's wrists. The rustler breathed a sigh of relief as freedom washed over him like warm sunlight breaking through dark clouds. Yet they both knew this moment of liberation was fragile. Danger still lurked nearby, and they had little time before their escape would be discovered. As the last chain fell away, Jake's breath caught in his throat. He blinked in disbelief, feeling the weight of his shackles lift for the first time in what felt like an eternity. His eyes widened as he looked up at the Mesa Trapper, a mix of emotions swirling within him: relief, gratitude, and a hint of confusion. You really came for me?" he stammered, his voice shaky but filled with hope. The trapper nodded, a quiet smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "Everyone deserves a chance to make things right," he replied, knowing well that this moment could change everything for both of them. Jake's heart swelled with gratitude as he took a step closer, their eyes locking in an understanding that transcended words. "Thank you," Jake said earnestly, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I'd never taste freedom again." The weight of his past began to lessen as he felt a flicker of possibility ignite within him. Yet, there was no time to linger on gratitude. Jake knew they had to move quickly. With renewed determination, he glanced toward the canyon where danger loomed and took a deep breath, ready to follow the trapper into whatever lay ahead. Together, just beyond the shadows of the mesa, the sheriff's posse gathered, their faces set with grim determination. They were a hardened group, each man marked by the toll of chasing down outlaws and enforcing the law in this untamed land. The leader, Sheriff Collins, stood at the forefront, his sharp gaze scanning the canyons for any sign of movement. Rumors of Jake's escape had spread quickly, fueling their resolve to recapture both the rustler and the one who dared to help him. "Listen up," Sheriff Collins shouted, his voice firm and commanding. "We know that Rustler is slippery, but he won't get far. We'll block every canyon until we've got him back in chains." The men nodded, gripping their rifles tightly, ready for whatever pursuit lay ahead. As they split into smaller groups, the tension mounted with every passing moment. The sheriff's instincts told him that time was not on their side. The longer they waited, the more chance Jake and the trapper had to slip away unnoticed. With a final glance at his men, Collins urged them forward. They were relentless hunters, driven by a sense of justice that would not waver until they had reclaimed what they believed belonged to them. As news of Jake's escape spread through the canyons like wildfire, it stirred a mix of reactions among the local residents. Whispers traveled quickly from ranch to ranch, carried by anxious voices discussing the daring act of the Mesa Trapper. Some admired the trapper's bravery and questioned the morality of capturing a man who was merely trying to survive. Others, however, felt fear and anger. They had witnessed firsthand the chaos that rustlers could bring to their livelihoods. A young rancher named Tom, leaning against a fence post, overheard two men discussing the escape over their morning coffee. "If that trapper helped him, he should be held accountable," one said, his brows furrowed in concern. "What's to stop them from coming back for more?" Meanwhile, an elderly woman named Clara paused her chores as she listened to the chatter. She recalled her own son's struggles and felt a pang of empathy for Jake. "Everyone deserves a chance to start over," she murmured to herself, torn between her instinct for safety and her compassion for those who suffered. As tensions rose among the community members, they began to prepare for the posse's arrival. unsure of what would come next in this unfolding drama woven through their quiet lives. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting a harsh light on the rugged canyons as Sheriff Collins directed his posse with purpose. "We've got to set up barriers at the entrances," he ordered, his voice cutting through the rising tension among the men. They moved swiftly, with an air of urgency, preparing logs and rocks to create makeshift barricades that would prevent Jake and the trapper from evading capture. Sweat dripped down their brows as they worked, anxiety brewing with each passing moment. The sound of hooves thudded against the ground as mounted men raced to their designated positions, eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. Collins felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. He couldn't afford to let Jake slip away again. Suddenly, a rider burst into view from a nearby trail, breathless and frantic. "Sheriff, they've been spotted heading this way." His warning sent a surge of adrenaline through the posse. Collins wasted no time, rallying his men with a fierce determination. "Hurry! We need to be ready. This is our chance." As they completed the barriers and prepared for confrontation, the tension was almost palpable in the air, each man acutely aware that the fate of both the rustler and the trapper hung in the balance. As they fled into the wilderness, the Mesa Trapper and Jake paused to catch their breath, the weight of their circumstances hanging heavily upon them. The trapper could feel the loyalty he had chosen to extend toward Jake clash with the law's relentless pursuit. He knew that helping a rustler could paint him as a criminal in the eyes of the law, yet his heart urged him to stand by a man desperate for redemption. Jake, on the other hand, grappled with his own sense of justice. He had made choices that led him down a dark path, but now, feeling the warmth of freedom for the first time, he yearned for a chance to prove himself. "I can't go back," Jake whispered, looking into the trapper's eyes for understanding. "Not after what I've done." The trapper nodded, recognizing the unspoken bond forming between them, a shared commitment to forge a new path, free from past burdens. Together, they weighed their options, knowing that every decision brought them closer to either salvation or danger. With the sheriff's posse hot on their trail, they needed to act swiftly, balancing their loyalty to each other against the stark reality of the justice system closing in around them. With the sheriff's posse hot on their trail, the Mesa Trapper and Jake dashed through the rugged terrain of the mesa, adrenaline fueling their every movement. The sound of galloping hooves echoed behind them, growing louder as the posse closed in. "This way," whispered the trapper, leading Jake down a narrow path between towering rock formations that seemed to loom like giants. Every leap over rocks and each scramble through brush brought both hope and despair. A branch snagged Jake's shirt, and he stumbled, but the trapper pulled him back up, urgency etched on his face. "Keep moving. We can't let them catch us." As they navigated through a thicket, the two men heard shouting behind them, voices rising in frustration as the posse struggled to follow their trail. The trapper quickly spotted a shallow creek ahead. "We'll cross here," he urged, knowing water would help mask their scent. They plunged into the cold water, feeling a rush of relief wash over them as they emerged on the other side. Just then, a gunshot rang out, narrowly missing the trapper's shoulder. Panic surged through them. They had to find cover fast. Glancing back, they saw the posse regrouping in the distance, determined to hunt them down at any cost. Time was against them as they raced through the wilderness, desperate for safety before noon's relentless sun shone down on them. As they finally found a moment to pause beneath the cover of a large tree, the weight of their choices pressed down on both Jake and the Mesa Trapper. Jake looked out at the vast expanse of the mesa, the beauty of the landscape stark against the turmoil of his thoughts. "What does it mean to be free?" he pondered aloud, grappling with the reality that freedom came with its own set of chains, those bound by fear and desperation. The trapper nodded thoughtfully, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Freedom is more than just escaping physical bonds, Jake. It's about making the right choices even when it's hard." He glanced back toward the direction they had come, where sounds of pursuit echoed faintly. Being a fugitive means living with uncertainty and constantly looking over your shoulder. But it's also about rising above your past. Jake felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. I want to change, he confessed, determination creeping into his voice. The trapper placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, acknowledging the bond they had formed through shared struggles. Then we'll fight for that chance together, he said, ready to navigate whatever lay ahead in their quest for redemption and true freedom in a world that seemed determined to deny them both.